Okay, so we're searing some steaks, right?
Right.
And right now we're preparing, you said a hollandaise sauce.
Or one of the derivatives from the hollandaise sauce is called a béarnaise sauce, which is more for steaks.
Okay.
Which is just a hollandaise with vinegar, tarragon, shallots, and white wine added to it.
Very nice.
It's a fairly long process, and it can be messed up really easily, but after time, it's good practice to get it done.
That's good. So how many times have you made this before?
6.
6 times? Yeah. Feeling comfortable about it?
Not really.
No?
Never do.
Hey, you look like you know exactly what you're doing. This is great.
Kind of. It's just really technical. And it's really easy to mess up. Kind of hard to perfect, but I'm doing all right.
So this that we're adding is
Butter.
okay.
Yeah.
Not the wine yet.
No, the wine is actually already reduced in it. What you do is
shucks, we missed it.
yeah, what you do is actually you put vinegar and wine in a skillet with the shallots and tarragon,
Okay.
and you just leave it.
Is that what you had?
Yeah.
Okay.
You leave it simmering over, I'd say, medium heat until it turns from half a cup to 2 tablespoons. Here, what you're doing is just emulsifying the egg yolk with the fat. That way, it actually turns into a sauce and not into 2 different liquids.
Okay. So you add the butter in little by little to make sure it
Yeah, if
makes
you
it
add,
evenly.
actually, if you add the fat or the butter too fast, it'll separate, and you'll just end up with sections of butter and sections of egg yolk, and it just won't be a good sauce. Yeah.
You're also mixing it over that simmering water, hot water.
Yeah,
that help the process.
Simmering water. Yeah, well, you do that just to help the eggs cook, but you don't want to have it too high because you'll scramble them and just turn to scrambled eggs. If you don't have it high enough, it just won't be thick. It'll be really watery sauce.
Very. We've got an ice.
Yeah, I have pretty much just a water bath.
Okay.
Blanching the asparagus. It's just pretty much dipping it in boiling water for 30 seconds and putting it in ice water for 30 more seconds.
Interesting. And what does that technique accomplish?
It just brightens the asparagus, cooks it a little bit, but it still gives it a nice crunch to it, and it doesn't lose any of its nutrients.
Okay. Blanching. So what's next? Saute some vegetables, or?
Yes. Just sauteing shiitake mushrooms, actually a gourmet mixture of mushrooms, red onions, and bell peppers.
Speaking of my heart. You using olive oil? So, olive oil, extra virgin,
Extra virgin.
extra virgin, yeah? Tell us about the differences.
I'm not exactly sure about the difference, actually.
Yeah?
No,
But
I have no.
in terms of quality and taste?
Pretty much, it would be a higher quality.
Yeah.
Lower smoking point, so it burns faster, but it's also healthier for the body if it's extra virgin. Because I guess it'd be strained more pure.
Okay.
And just normal olive oil.
There we have it. You heard it first here on ASU Eats. Probably everyone loves it.
Yeah.
So we're searing them, right? We're not fully cooking them.
Well, kind of.
Kind of?
I don't really cook my steak because I'm a rare, medium rare type of guy.
Okay.
But searing can be cooked all the way through.
Yeah.
It doesn't have to necessarily be just partially cooked.
Okay. I didn't know if you guys would, if you sear them and then like grill them after, or sear them to completion.
You could.
Yeah.
Searing them is just pretty much adding a little bit of color. But since these are pretty thin cuts of steak,
Yeah.
you don't necessarily have to cook them very long. So it's still considered searing, but it could.
So how long do you sear them on each side?
Usually about a minute to 2 minutes on each side.
Yeah. And that's to accomplish a good like rare, medium rare? Or?
Yeah, depending on the size of the steak.
Yeah.
For this, it would. maybe just a little bit longer. We're also going to be basting it in butter, which is just melting, or putting chunks of butter in there with a little bit of time, and then with a spoon, just kind of pour it on top after it's already melted.
Okay. And because I didn't ask earlier, what kind of cuts do we have here?
Those are flat iron steaks.
Flat iron steak.
Yeah. This, you just let your steak rest. You don't touch it. You don't do anything to it. You can add a little bit of lemon juice.
Lemon juice.
You leave it alone.
Is that specific to this recipe, or is that something that you just like to do to your steaks?
Just instinct, pretty much.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah, but you let it rest. That way the juices go back into the meat, and they don't. Whenever you're cutting into it, they don't all just spew out.
Okay.
So that's going on.
So now we're still just letting the
Pretty
steak
much.
sit.
Yeah.
Okay.
It's very, very important to let it rest.
Yeah. Gotta lock it. It locks in the flavors.
It does.
Cools from the
It really
outside.
does. And also when it comes to presentations, if you don't let it rest enough, the blood starts coming out on there, and it looks kind of messy. Most people don't mind it, but it just looks messy. For a good presentation, you want to let it rest, keep the juices inside.
And then, so what is cheese?
This is actually tofu that I use for different things.
Tofu. Okay.
Yeah, that I actually use for the salads that's over there.
Ah.
What's good? Y'all try some?
It tastes like nothing.
Just
It's healthy.
the food sponge. Yeah.
Absorbs anything you put into it. It's good for you. But no
Like
flavor.
some tofu and cauliflower baked soup. So again, this is not hollandaise sauce; it's a
Bernays.
béarnaise sauce.
This is just a derivative from the hollandaise sauce.
Real quick, can you give us a run through just of what the recipe was and like what each item is in the plate?
Of course. So here we have blanched asparagus and sauteed vegetables, which is just mushrooms. We have a variety of gourmet mushrooms, bell peppers, and red onions. We have a potato flour that I made out of a mold, and we have seared flat iron steak and a béarnaise sauce to go with it. And just as garnish, we just have a little bit of parsley, flat leaf parsley.
Wonderful. Well, it looks amazing.
All right. Y'all can actually enjoy them if y'all want.
My name is Brian Hernandez, and today I'll be preparing a fillet with just an assortment of vegetables on the side and a nice demi-glace sauce. So the first thing I'm going to start with is actually starting the demi-glace sauce, which today I'm just going to be using ASU. It's just a beef broth, very concentrated. And traditionally you use beef stock and you just reduce it down throughout a couple of days, but today this will still bring a nice good beefy little sauce to it, and you just let that simmer off for a little bit. In the meantime, I'm gonna start off with cutting up the vegetables for the just the sides. And one thing I like to do with my sides, usually I like to incorporate a lot of vegetables in a lot of different colors just to add an assortment to it, just add some real brightness to the dish itself. And you also want to use vegetables or a starch or some kind that really complements the dish. And usually mushrooms complement a steak really well. The earthiness helps bring out the nice steak flavor out of it. And today we're going to be using oyster mushrooms and red onion. The red onion is a little bit stronger. It'll help out balance out the strong flavor of these mushrooms because they're a lot stronger than like portobellos or bud mushrooms that you would usually get at Kroger, stuff like that. And also just some sides of herbs. I'm going to be using parsley and cilantro. And also just for some extra color and more of a healthier, just a healthier turn to it, I'm gonna be using some split peas, or snow peas actually. All right. Once you get it to a nice boil, I also have this thickening agent, which is just warm water with cornstarch, but just a little bit of it. It should thicken up the sauce pretty well. Usually when you do this, you want to add it a little bit at a time. That way you don't thicken it too much. And the reason I like to use cornstarch in hot water is because it gives it like a nice gloss to it, to the finish of the sauce. And it thickens it a lot faster than what a roux would. You kind of want to get it to the stage where the sauce starts beginning to stick to the spoon just slightly, and then take it off the heat. While you do that, you go ahead and put another pan on for the steak. Season it liberally with salt and pepper. And just use the steak itself to really mop up the excess that you have around the cutting board or whatever you use. Really get use of all that salt and pepper and really get it on the sides and everywhere. This will not only bring out the flavor of the steak, but also give it a nice crust to the top of it. Once your pan's nice and hot, you go ahead and add the oil. Today I'm going to be using sunflower oil. It's a neutral flavor, and it usually withstands a lot higher heat, so it doesn't burn as fast. So it's good for stir frying, sauteing, deep frying as well. And you just put that on the prettier side, or the best side first, so you can build that nice good crust on it. And usually, depending on the size of the steak, you want to leave it in there for a couple minutes. This will probably be about 3-4 minutes on that side, and then a couple more minutes on the side. And for the steak, also, I'm going to be preparing this basting liquid that I'm going to be using, which is just butter and some type of herb, which you use to tenderize the meat in a way, and also infuse flavor of the herb. You don't want to touch it too much, but always check it occasionally. You don't want it to burn too much on one side. You just want a nice good crust and brown color to it. You do the same thing on the other side until you can actually start seeing the how well the meat's being cooked, because as you cook it longer, the color changes and it just rises up towards the center. You just want to cook it till those two sections meet, which could take some time, but should be good. Alright. Around this time, you want to just start putting it on its side, just really browning those sides as well. And then flipping it back to one side, you turn down the heat just a tad bit. Let the pan cool off slightly if it's way too hot, because I'm going to be adding the butter next. You don't want the butter to burn. Usually it doesn't give it a very good flavor. That should be good. Add a good amount of butter and herbs to it. Let that butter melt real quick. And then just tilt your pan to one side, and with your spoon, just splash the top of it. Can I get another one of these pans? Another one of these pans? Yeah. And then once you feel like it's nice and ready, usually just by touching it, you could tell. If you feel that, and then you feel this little area of your hand, when you have these two fingers pinching right here, that's about rare. This would be medium rare. That would be a medium well, and this is well done. And usually you can just tell this would be more of a rare. And you set it off to the side and just let it rest. Usually you want to rest it as long as you cooked it to really bring those the juices back into the meat itself. And maybe add just a little bit of the butter to the top of it. Keep it nice and juicy and moist. Now heating this up for the vegetables that I'm going to be using. Again, you want this one nice and hot because you don't want to overcook these vegetables. You just want to really get some good heat and color onto them. Oh, I don't have my heat turned up all the way, so. Alright. Once you feel like your heat's high enough or your pan's hot enough, I usually want to start with my onions to really bring out a little bit of the sweetness to it, but still keep the onion flavor. Just add a small amount of salt and pepper. Usually with mushrooms, you want to leave them on the heat just a little bit, just to get some of that liquid out, and really get some of that deep, earthy flavor out of it. And always remember to watch your heat. You don't want to overburn anything or burn anything at all, really. Season that layer as well. And the reason I put the snow peas last, you don't want to get them really mushy. You want to keep their integrity to it, nice and firm. and by then your sauce should be cooled down and nice and thick. You could always put it back on the heat if it's too thick for you, and add more thickening agent, or add a little bit of water to like water it down a little bit if it's too thick. That should be good. It has a nice color to it. Nothing looks burnt. The greens are still very green, and then you want to add a little bit of the herbs, so it keeps them on the side for garnishing. And then you just play it as desired. I usually like to line my things up or do it a very contemporary way, really out of the norm. You can decide to cut your steak or leave it as it is. I like to leave it. Just place it on top. Just a few herbs on there. And a few sides of a homemade French baguette that we also toasted off to keep it nice and crunchy. Add some sauce to the top of the steak. And maybe some on the bread. Since we toasted it, it usually absorbs it really, really well, but still stays nice and crunchy. But there you have it.
Hi, my name is Dylan. This is Brian. Today we're going to be showing you some basic cutting techniques on vegetables you probably use every day. Right now Brian's sharpening the knife, and he'll get started on the dice with the onion. Now on a dice, you typically want to do it only with firmer vegetables, or because if you try to do it with a tomato or anything else softer, it'll probably end up being mushy, and it's really not the texture or consistency you want to go for. Now with this onion, Brian's gonna probably just go for a medium dice on it. Just keep his finger stuck so he doesn't cut himself. Now, dices, normally with onion, you'd probably use it for something like tacos or any kind of additive to a meat. You can also use it for sauteing to add more flavor to dishes. Next, we'll be doing the zucchini. We'll be doing julienne. The julienne is just longer, thinner strips. Good for pastas. It's usually the shape you cut carrots or cabbage into for coleslaw or anything. It's good for salads, typically what it's used for. And notice how they cut one side off to make it flat, because when you're going julienne, you're just cutting thin strips. The zucchini, it's going to be a lot more stable if you have a flat side, so when you're going to cut it, you don't accidentally cut yourself. Now these typically you'd make them shorter, but today we're just going for longer because we're going to use them for a pasta. So, or a pasta salad anyways. Just do one, please. So next will be the squash. Squash is very similar to zucchini, but on this we'll be doing the half moon cuts, which is cutting it into coins and then cutting those in half. Squash is just a real plain vegetable. It's real versatile, and you can use it for a multitude of things. Preferably, the way we're doing it, probably be sauteed off for a side dish or steamed to accompany something. Consistency. Notice how Brian doesn't have his fingers sticking out when he's cutting. He's got it running just along the spine of the blade and the edge of the blade, so it can't cut them. Nice job. You are good, sir. Next we'll be doing the tomato with the rondelle cuts. And see, with vegetables that are softer like a tomato, like Brian's doing, he's not putting much pressure on the blade. He's running it through to pierce the skin first. That's to prevent it from being mushy. That way you still get your firmer texture you want. And last but not least, we'll be doing the mushrooms with the tourney. Now it's taking a smaller blade, such as a paring knife or a boning knife. You're making small turns with the mushrooms while making a cut down. It makes a kind of spiral and swirl effect on the mushroom. It's good roasted off or served hollowed out with s'mores. Any kind of stuffing really would be nice with it. But it's more of a visual thing than a flavor thing. And what he did there is he made the star mark at the top just to peek it off. And then just daily maintenance on your blades. Usually you want to sharpen it. Yeah, just go ahead and sharpen it. Sharpening it here, you're just going to take your sharpener and your knife. You want to hold it at about a, say, 45-degree angle, running the spine, or running the blade against the spine of the sharpener. This wears down the steel on the edges. It takes out the frayed pieces, sharpens it better. But daily maintenance on your blades is usually good. Just taking 5 minutes out of your day just to take care of your blades will last you a long time. Thank you for joining us.